Hello everyone, and welcome back to a new episode. I know many of you use these videos to help you sleep, so before we begin, I thought it would be fun for everyone to say hello and leave a comment letting me know where in the world you're tuning in from. Your engagement really makes this channel special. And hey, if you enjoy getting your nightly dose of thrills and chills with us, why not hit that subscribe button below? It's the best way to never miss out on the latest terrifying tales. So kick back, relax, and let's get started. The static on the radio crackled like a swarm of angry bees. It was the only sound besides the rhythmic thump of the rain hitting the dented roof of my car. Another Friday night, another delivery for Big Tony's. This one, though, felt different. The address was scrawled on a crumpled receipt, the ink bleeding like a bad bruise. It led me to the outskirts of town, where abandoned factories loomed like skeletal giants against the stormy sky. The GPS died a block away, leaving me squinting at faded street signs under the flickering glow of a lone street light. Finally, a match, 13, Grimwood Lane. The house itself wasn't imposing, a single-story bungalow shrouded in darkness. But the silence surrounding it was oppressive, like a scream held hostage in the night. Setting the pizza box on the rain-slicked porch, I knocked. The sound echoed hollowly in the storm. Just as I considered leaving the pizza and marking it done, a flickering light danced behind a dusty window. A moment later, a face materialized, gaunt, pale, framed by stringy white hair. "Delivery?" A voice, raspy and weak, rasped from the window. "Yep," I replied, the nervous tremor in my voice betraying my unease. "One large sausage, extra cheese?" The face remained impassive, the eyes like two black marbles staring out. "Leave it on the porch," it croaked. We don't open the door anymore." Something in that statement sent a shiver down my spine. Sure," I stammered, placing the box down hesitantly. As I turned to leave, the porch light flickered once, then died, plunging the house back into darkness. The wind picked up, moaning around the house like a banshee in mourning. Suddenly, a guttural growl erupted from within, a sound that wasn't human, filled with a primal hunger. My heart hammered against my ribs. A primal fear, cold and sharp, clawed at my throat. I bolted for my car, the image of that unseen monstrosity fueling my terror. Slamming into the driver's seat, I fumbled for the keys, the engine sputtering to life at the second try. As I peeled away from the curb, I glanced back through the rearview mirror. The house stood bathed in a sickly green glow, emanating from the windows. A dark shape, vaguely humanoid, pressed against the glass, its guttural growls still carrying on the wind. Panic fueled my escape. I didn't slow down until I reached the brightly lit heart of town, the memory of that night clinging to me like a shroud. I never delivered to Grimwood Lane again, the pizza a chilling reminder of the secrets some houses hold, secrets best left undisturbed in the darkness. The neon glow of the open sign cast an eerie red hue over the rain-slicked street. It was close to midnight, a graveyard shift for a pizza delivery guy like me. The monotonous rhythm of windshield wipers was the only company I had as I pulled up to the address, a sprawling Victorian mansion perched on a hill, its silhouette stark against the stormy sky. The order was a single, gourmet pizza, the kind with ingredients most people wouldn't recognize, let alone eat. The price tag, however, was enough to make me brave the weather and the unsettling vibe of the place. As I approached the mansion, the wind howled around me, rattling the skeletal branches of the ancient oak trees that lined the driveway. The silence from the house was deafening, broken only by the groaning of the wind. Taking a deep breath, I rang the doorbell. The ornate brass knocker felt cold and clammy in my hand. A tense minute ticked by before a sliver of light peeked out from under the heavy oak door. It creaked open a fraction, revealing a sliver of a woman dressed in black. Her face was pale and gaunt, her eyes wide and bloodshot. "Delivery," she rasped, her voice barely a whisper. "Yep," I forced a smile, the rain plastering my hair to my forehead. "One gourmet pie, extra everything?" "Come in," she rasped, the door creaking open a hair wider. "Master Crowley is expecting you." My smile faltered. Crowley? The name sent a shiver down my spine. There were whispers about the mansion's eccentric owner, a recluse rumored to dabble in the occult. But the thought of a hefty tip propelled me forward. The foyer was cavernous, lit by flickering gas lamps that cast long, dancing shadows on the dusty walls. The air hung heavy with the scent of old books and something else, something metallic and acrid. An unsettling feeling of being watched prickled at my skin. The woman, her name tag barely visible in the dim light, Agnes, led me down a labyrinthine hallway, the floorboards groaning under our weight. Each creak echoed in the vast emptiness of the house, amplifying my growing dread. Finally, she stopped before a massive oak door, its surface intricately carved with strange symbols. Before I could stammer a question, Agnes pushed the door open, revealing a dimly lit study. A tall figure sat behind a sprawling mahogany desk, his back to me. The only light came from a single flickering candle, casting grotesque shadows on the walls. "Ah, the delivery," the figure rasped, his voice a low guttural sound. "Set it down on the table, would you?" As I approached the table, the man swiveled around in his chair. My breath hitched in my throat. His face was obscured by a long, flowing beard, but his eyes, they were unlike anything I'd ever seen. Glowing embers flickered within their depths, burning with an unnatural light. He gestured towards a covered cage on the desk. "And while you're here," he said, his voice dripping with a cold amusement, "perhaps you could help me feed my guest." The metallic scent hit me then, stronger now. A horrifying realization dawned on me as I lifted the cloth from the cage. Inside, a monstrous rat, its eyes glowing red, twitched its whiskers and let out a blood-curdling shriek. Panic surged through me. Before Crowley could react, I threw the pizza box at him, the contents scattering across his desk. With a primal yell, I turned and bolted, the sound of his enraged roar echoing behind me. I didn't stop running until I burst back into the pouring rain, my lungs burning. Looking back, the mansion stood silent, the flickering light in the study the only sign of the horror that lurked within. I never went back for my car. The memory of that night, of Crowley's glowing eyes and the monstrous rat, became a permanent scar, a chilling reminder of the darkness that can hide behind even the most ordinary facades. The engine of my beat-up Honda coughed and wheezed as I pulled up to the address scrawled on the greasy receipt. It was nearing 2 a.m., the witching hour for a pizza delivery guy on a Friday night. Most calls at this point were to college dorms reeking of desperation and regret, or lonely bachelor apartments promising questionable hygiene. This address, however, was different. It was tucked away on a quiet, almost eerie, suburban street. The houses were all identical two-story colonials, each with a manicured lawn and a picture of picket fence perfection. The house number, 13 Elm, seemed to loom under the sickly glow of a single flickering street lamp. Stepping out of the car, the silence was thick enough to choke on. No crickets chirped, no dogs barked, just an unnerving quiet that made the hairs on the back of my neck prickle. A sliver of light peeked out from under the front door. That was a good sign, right? I approached cautiously, the worn cardboard of the pizza box feeling flimsy and useless against the unknown dangers of the night. A woman, shrouded in shadow, opened the door a crack. Her face was obscured by darkness, but her voice, a dry rasp, reached me clearly. "Delivery?" "Yep," I forced a smile, the fluorescent glow from the car barely reaching the porch. "One large pepperoni, extra cheese?" "Come in," she rasped, the door creaking open a fraction wider. "He can't get to the door." Hesitation gnawed at me. My gut instinct screamed to turn and run, but the promise of a decent tip, or rarity at this hour, held me rooted to the spot. With a deep breath, I stepped inside. The air inside was stale and heavy, thick with the cloying scent of mothballs and something else I couldn't quite place. The woman, her face still shrouded in darkness, shuffled deeper into the house, beckoning me to follow. "Just down the hall, dear," she croaked. "He'll be happy to see you." The hallway was dimly lit, a single bulb casting long, grotesque shadows on the walls. The silence here was even more profound, broken only by the rasp of my own breathing. As I reached the doorway indicated by the woman, a low, guttural growl emanated from within. It sent shivers down my spine and a wave of nausea washing over me. "Here he is," the woman said, her voice barely a whisper. "Just set the pizza down on the table." Against my better judgment, I peered into the room. A lone figure sat hunched over at a dusty table, its back to me. In the dim light, all I could see was a skeletal frame clothed in rags. It didn't move, didn't acknowledge my presence. Taking a tentative step forward, I placed the pizza box on the table. As I did, the figure whirled around, its face a mask of grotesque decay. One eye, milky white and clouded, stared at me with a chilling intensity. Its lips, stretched into a horrifying rictus, let out a wet, guttural rasp that sounded more like a death rattle than human speech. Terror choked the scream that rose in my throat. I stumbled back, tripping over an unseen object and crashing to the floor. The woman, who had been watching from the doorway, cackled, a high-pitched, inhuman sound that echoed off the dusty walls. "Looks like we have another guest for dinner, Harold," she shrieked, her voice laced with manic glee. Adrenaline surged through me, overriding the terror that had momentarily paralyzed me. Scrambling to my feet, I bolted past the woman, ignoring her screeching laughter and the creature's guttural growls. I burst through the front door and sprinted towards my car, the image of that decaying face burned into my retinas. The engine coughed once, twice, then sputtered to life. As I peeled away from the curb, I glanced back at the house. The single light bulb had flickered out, plunging it back into darkness. The silence, once unnerving, now felt like a chilling victory song. I didn't look back, didn't slow down until I was miles away, the taste of fear lingering in my mouth like a bad dream. That night, I quit my job. The extra cash wasn't worth the lingering nightmares, the cold sweats that woke me up in the dead of night. The memory of 13 Elm Street, and the horror that lurked within, was a reminder that sometimes, the quiet suburban streets held the darkest secrets. The rain hammered a relentless rhythm on the beat-up Toyota's roof. It was the kind of rain that seeped into your bones, the kind that made Friday night deliveries feel extra miserable. This order was the last one, a beacon of hope in this watery hell. The address took me to the outskirts of town, a maze of ramshackle houses huddled close together. The GPS died a block away, leaving me squinting at faded house numbers under the flickering streetlight. Finally, a match, 142 Elm. The porch light was out, casting the rickety house in an unsettling gloom. A shiver danced down my spine, fueled by the damp and the oppressive silence. Setting the pizza box on the rain-slicked step, I knocked. The sound echoed hollowly in the night. No answer. I waited, counting the seconds tick by, the silence broken only by the drumming rain. Just as I considered leaving the pizza and marking it a done deal, a shuffling sound came from inside. The deadbolt clicked open a sliver, revealing a sliver of an eye peering through the gap. "Yeah?" A raspy voice barely reached my ears. "Delivery for Miller?" I held the box up, the steam of fleeting ghost in the downpour. The door creaked open a fraction wider, revealing a gaunt woman with hair the color of dishwater. Her eyes were sunken, ringed with dark circles. "Come in," she rasped, gesturing with a skeletal hand. "He's having trouble getting around." The air inside was thick with a cloying sweetness, like overripe fruit. My stomach lurched. This wasn't right. But before I could stammer a refusal, another voice, deeper and gravelly, rumbled from the shadows of the hallway. "Who is it, Agnes?" Something primal screamed at me to get out. But the woman, Agnes, had already reached out, her cold fingers wrapping around my wrist. Her grip was surprisingly strong. "Just the delivery boy, Harold," she said, her voice flat. "Come on in, you're letting the rain in." Panic clawed at my throat. I tried to pull away, but Agnes' grip tightened. A bead of sweat trickled down my temple. I can just leave it here," I stammered, my voice cracking. Harold stepped closer, his silhouette immense in the dim light. "We don't do that here, son. Not with company." A sliver of light from the hallway caught something glinting in Harold's hand. Metal. My breath hitched. "Look," I forced a smile, the taste of fear metallic in my mouth. "I appreciate the offer, really, but I gotta get going. Lots of deliveries tonight, you know?" There was a long, heavy silence. Then, a slow, chilling smile spread across Harold's face. It didn't reach his eyes. In the dim light, they gleamed with a predatory hunger. "Of course," he said, his voice dripping with a false cheer. "Let Agnes show you out." Agnes' grip tightened further, her touch like ice. As she began to pull me deeper into the house, the metallic glint in Harold's hand winked out of sight, swallowed by the shadows. The rain continued its relentless drumming, a grim soundtrack to the terror blooming in my chest.